If you've been enjoying R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. So my whole life, I've, been brought up and raised the idea that there's a reason for everything, right? And even if it's just a word to help you cope with challenging times, I've always been a believer in it. I came across your ideas and mission just in, being a content creator myself these days, and really just wanted to learn more about you and your journey. There's a lot of alignment. I've been doing this show for about a year now. This is going to be episode 60, 70 something. And I've just talked to some really cool entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders, politicians, authors, scientists, the whole kind of gamut of people that see the world in the same light that I do. And so with that, wanted to just, you're kind enough to respond to my Instagram DM and wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself to my audience. I have a bunch of questions for you, but like I said, there's a ton of alignment between our two missions. So I would love to give you a chance to introduce yourself to my audience and we can go from there if that works for you.
Yeah, man. Happy to. I don't always, as you can imagine, the DMs get kind of full from time to time, and my team and I both respond to DMs, and I every now and again I'll look and see, okay, well, what's this person working on? What do they got going? Just got to give a good vibe, because I know when I started on the thought leadership journey, it's not an easy egg to crack. It's really not. You have to have credibility to have sustainability, but then you need sustainability to prove your credibility, and it's like a chicken egg thing all over. And I swore to myself that as my ability began to rise and increase, that I myself would then look at other platforms to say, all right, who's doing great work? Because I'm a big believer that those doing great work should have a great voice. And as a result, that's kind of one of the reasons that we decided that we were definitely hang out with you today for sure. But I don't know, for me, I'm most known for going from homelessness to building a nine-figure business and beyond. To me, that's the shiny stuff. That's not the important stuff. I tell people all the time that there's far too much celebration on the success right now in the media. It doesn't matter if it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. It's like people putting up fake cars and fake airplanes. And one of my favorite clips that I saw probably a couple of weeks ago was this guy gets, a private jet lands on the tarmac, parks. He gets off the thing on a phone. Clearly he's occupied. And some woman runs over in the evening gown and stands and takes a quick picture beside the plane before the pilot gets off. She used that clip to actually over the plane, right? And just like that's so inauthentic. It's not even funny. It's also not realistic. So I've been on a mission recently to help entrepreneurs, business owners, founders, creators understand that they need to celebrate the sacrifice, not the success. And the reason is because the sacrifice ultimately is what's going to give them the wisdom and the experience that then gives them the credibility, that then gives them the sustainability to build a platform. And, when I've been very fortunate and been very blessed to be on several media outlets at this stage of the game, and I'm honored to be on yours for sure. But one question that always comes up is like, well, how'd you become homeless? I'm like, I'm so tired of answering that question. And I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just being real, right? Mainly because we take the focus off of the experience. We take the focus off the lessons learned. We take the focus, off those, what I call the intangibles. I'll give you an example. My first mentor, the guy that, largely got me out of many a predicament that I put myself into, one time told me that the best thing you can do with your entire life is to create a legacy that outlives you. So if you create a legacy that outlives you, the interesting thing is you're not going to be focused on stuff. People that are focused on stuff and shiny things and trying to show off, what it really says is I'm very insecure. I have to prove my value to you. I got to prove that I'm worthy of having a voice, worthy of being present, worthy of this, not realizing that that's actually setting them back. Right. And I say that to say, I went through that journey myself. I went through the journey of, early on before I went through the homeless journey of making a bunch of money, buying a bunch of shiny stuff, trying to prove myself to other people. And you know what? They applauded from the stands, but ignored me when I fell. Right. So that by definition, they weren't quality people, quality relationship, quality connections. And so recently I've been on this mission to get entrepreneurs to give them complete congruent awareness, right? Of the need to develop themselves, the need to really pour into themselves, and to, the average American right now statistically spends between, based on which generation you're in, X, Y, millennial, etc., between 4 and 6 hours a day consuming media. 4 and 6 hours a day. Think about that. So I say I want to go out and build an amazing organization. I say I want to build an amazing relationship. I say I want to pour into my family. But yet there's 4 to 6 hours a day on a regular. Let's use 5 for easy math. So 5 hours a day times 7 days a week is how many hours of wasted time?
35 hours right there if I paid attention in elementary school math well enough, yeah.
Exactly, right? So 35 hours of wasted time compounded times 52 weeks a year. Like you literally have sold your kind of like your opportunity and prosperity through the lens of distraction.
Mm-hmm.
My middle son came to me shortly after high school. He's come to me a few times. It's like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm like, dude, just go knock something over. Like, go do something. Like, go mow a lawn. Go rake some leaves. I'm now living in Utah, so I was like, go blow some snow. Like, just do something, because people, and this is really good for entrepreneurs, because a lot of entrepreneurs have a bazillion ideas, and because they have a bazillion ideas, they're constantly working on a bazillion different things rather than focusing in on one. Why not take one to mastery? Because if you master it and it's based on impact, you're going to create income. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm working with a high-profile thought leader right now that to help them kind of reshape some of their revenue tools as well as their personal brand scenario. Okay. And they have this idea of a book, a specific type of book, but yet they're known for this, and this. And I'm like, we need to focus on monetizing this, and this before we talk about this book concept. Not because you can't write a book, not because you can't bring other authors in to write a book, not because you're not worthy of doing it, but because it's diluted focus. And distraction right now is literally destroying dreams. Okay. You don't want distraction to destroy your dreams. So therefore, you have to be cognizant and intentional with where you're putting your time, your talent, your resources. It's a Saturday as we're kind of recording this, and I don't normally do interviews on Saturdays in general, just because I'm busy during the week and everything, and that's normally family time. I'm very fortunate. My partner's like, yeah, just you need to go keep sharing messages. So I'm like, okay, babe. So she's out there with the 3-year-old right now, hanging out and doing the kind of thing. And but I say that to say that during the week, I operate from an intense focus. I get up at a specific time. I have a kind of a daily routine I walk through: prayer, meditation, working out. I focus on a specific area of life each day of the week to make sure I have a well-rounded thing. I take my phone calls. I break my day into 15-minute increments, right? So technically, this podcast, this show is 15. It's 3 buckets of 15-minute increments, right? It's 3 times 40, 50, and by doing that, I'm allowed to be more intentional, because one of the things I want to avoid is what happened when I was building my first business before I exited it. I wasn't present when I needed to be present. My son comes to me one afternoon. He says, if there's one thing you could work on as a dad, just one thing. I'm like, okay, I'm all ears. He said, if you could just be more present when you're present. Okay, so now I'm hyper-focused on being intentional throughout the course of the day. So when I get home, I can be hyper-focused through them. And then my good friend Anthony Trucks once said, he said, because I was going through a family thing a couple of years ago, I wanted his advice because he'd been through a similar season, years earlier. I said, dude, how are you balancing all this?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time showing up and being everywhere. He said he realized that his family didn't need more time. They needed quality time. He said if he could go in with an intentional focus to focus in with his children at one-on-one, He said 90 minutes with them would allow him a week's worth of work. And they would still feel connected and loved and appreciated. And the same was with his wife. He's like, so when I'm on the road or I'm speaking, I'm teaching, I'm writing, I'm coaching, I'm doing all this. When I'm doing that, I'm doing that. But the moment I clip the switch off, I go back over here. And see, the trap for an entrepreneur is we think that if we don't respond to that email, respond to that text message, pick up that phone call, deal with that disgruntled customer that's probably not got our best interest in heart anyway, that our whole world's going to fall apart. And the reality is they can stay pissed off for another 10 minutes. It's not going to hurt anybody. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not, the world is not going to come to an end. Your business is not going to fall apart, barring some really catastrophic, scenario. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, the perspective is wrong, and that's why I think I'm so passionate right now of people and business owners and thought leaders and people who are trying to build credible platforms and creators. I want them to pay more attention to what they're putting into the machine rather than trying to celebrate what comes out of the machine. Because what goes into the machine is the important stuff. That's the stuff you actually build a brand, a team, a business, a family. Like those are your principles. And I'm a big believer that principles govern promises. And if you want to live a certain promise, you have to live by certain principles. You want to build great relationships? Great. You got to be an honest person. Who'd have thunk it? You want to be wealthy? Hey, you got to stop spending more than you make. Like, we make life so much more difficult than it actually is. And when thought leaders and creators like yourself step out on faith and start sharing key principles that actually help you move forward and win the day. Because literally winning life is just winning it day by day, not giving up. I tell people all the time that, unstoppable, I think they're like, well, unstoppable is kind of a buzzword. I'm like, not for me, it's not. For me, it's a lifestyle, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that I get up one more time than I fall down. That means I try one more time, then I want to quit. It's an element of resilience. It's an element of relentlessness. And it's also an element of celebrating the sacrifices.
Steven, there were so many incredible one-liners. My notebook is already full for this one here. Let me start with this. So the point you made at the start of the average person's consuming 5 hours of media a day. Again, to your point on intentionality, I myself have become so focused on controlling my inputs because your inputs create your outputs. I've been really focused on creating before I consume on social or what have you. For you, someone who's in the ether, constantly creating and putting content out in the world, as a consumer, how are you able to gate and protect what your input is in a world where there's just constant distractions flying out at us? And again, to your point, distractions are destroying the dream. How are you protecting that and sheltering that for yourself?
I can only give you my framework, right? So, because I want my framework to be everybody's framework because it works for me, right? But it may not work for everybody else. The easiest thing you have to understand is that there's a mentorship matrix of sorts. A good buddy of mine, Doug Stewart, that's based out of North Carolina, taught he called it the five mentors. Okay. And he articulates. So this mentorship matrix is based largely on his concept. A mentorship matrix really has four components. It has an aspirational mentor. So these are people that I admire, respect. I need to actually go through the time and talent and diligence of making sure they actually have the character and integrity I think they have. Because I've been in now green rooms all over the place and whatnot, and been speaking and whatnot. You see a lot of things. You can see people who are one way on stage and one way in the green room, right? And when you see those types of things, in some cases you can get respect for people because some people are better in the green room than they are on stage, and vice versa. Or in some ways you can lose respect. Okay, so when you're looking at an aspirational mentor, someone that maybe is where you want to be in life. Okay, maybe they've got the business, the relationship, maybe they got the things that's like whatever is your motivator, right? Maybe they've got that thing. I want to make sure that they can actually have knowledge they gain by experience. So I'm not a fan of gurus. I'm not a fan of people trying to sell something they've never done. or try to teach people concepts and principles and theologies that they're just ripping from different places and they're trying to apply like they did the work. I want to learn people that did the work. Okay. Because when I go to 3 questions deep on a specific subject matter, they can answer the question. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. That covers our aspirational mentor. The next one's going to be a historical mentor, right? That's your books. That's anything that has been left behind that you can learn from. Between the Bible and finance books and relationship books, like there are so many resources that you don't ever have to go out and like literally talk to anybody else again if you just read books, right? Now, that would be kind of boring. Eventually you get tired of like being by yourself and just learning a bunch of stuff. But find books or historical component. Could be a book. It could, I think historical is more of a book kind of scenario. It's a left behind piece of content.
Yeah.
Find the resources of where you're suffering the greatest. So if your finances are a wreck, fantastic. You need finance books. If your relationships are struggling and you need a relationship resource, right? So always go find resources that your greatest point of need. Okay. Take the 5 hours a day that you're wasting in social media, take 2.5 of those and aim them at your thing. Aim them at your advancement, right? And it takes intentionality because you have to be more mindful of when you pick that device up or when you're doing this or background or whatever, right? The other one's the peer-to-peer mentor. So the peer-to-peer is you and I right now on a podcast. We're brainstorming ideas. We're learning from each other. We're because of that, we're going to become sharper, wiser, more educated with real content, not just like theology content or fake content, And because of that, iron sharpens iron. All right. Mm-hmm. The fourth one is the digital mentor, which is ironically, we're kind of doing all of this all at one time, right? We're trying to identify the aspirational mentor. We're talking about the books, but now we're doing it in a digital format that will be evergreen, that I can go back and replay and watch again. Those concepts, the reason that Matrix is so important and Doug Stewart's content is so good. He did an entire TEDx talk, by the way. If you guys in your audience haven't seen it, go find it. It's amazing. He's a phenomenal communicator. But the reason I bring that up is because you have to determine what you're going to do with that 5 hours. Okay. Most people aren't thinking about it. So my framework is I wake up at a specific time of day. I go through my thought leadership education, right? I'm praying, I'm meditating, I get into my day. I'll talk to my girlfriend off and on throughout the course of the day via text to make sure we're checking in. I come home and typically I might get an hour of media in, hour and a half. I'm not even in my own social media feeds that often, mainly because I'm busy. I'm very fortunate that I've got a team that handles some of that, and we both have access to my DMs and all that kinds of stuff. But my job is to create meaningful content that people can build an amazing life from, whether it's business, whether it's relationships or whatever. My job is to talk about failures. Okay. Because I think you learn far more by somebody's failures than you do by their successes. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm very transparent about that. I feel like I'm one of the ones that's trying to lead the charge. It's like, guys, stop acting like you got it all figured out. Everyone knows you don't. You're just a little further along than this person here. And that person wants to have the truth. Like, tell them the truth, kind of thing. All of that framework is just deciding one decision. What am I going to do with my wasted time? With my distractionary time? Start by cutting it in half and, probably doing that for probably a year. You'll probably get to a place where you'll probably have an hour of time for entertainment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a replenishment cycle and entertainment. There's something wrong with entertainment having you. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. If you're constantly scrolling and you don't even know what I've picked up my phone before and been scrolling. I'm like, why am I even on my phone? Mm-hmm. I'm just bored. Right. So rather than scroll, open the book app and read the book, or open the podcast app and listen to the podcast. Right. Yep. Or go to the notes app and take some notes, do some journaling, think for yourself. Right. These are practical steps to eliminate that distractionary issue so you can actually get a permanent level of advancement.
What I love about your content is and I've used this word on my past few shows probably too many times, but I talk about, give me the mechanics. How are you doing this? And I love that you've consistently done this in your content of outlining the true, application of some of these high level, get off your phone and start grinding, but you're actually giving, prescriptive thought in terms of how to do it.
Now what?
Exactly. And to that end, what I find so cool about, especially like you're mentioning, the peer-to-peer, the peer-to-peer network that we're building here, the idea of evergreen and creating content that way ties back to your point about legacy and creating that outlives you. And I think it's so fascinating.
It's becoming that historical content.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just think it's so cool, and really did a great job articulating what I've tried to on this show, which is part of the reason why I created this in the first place. Was I'd had a couple of different business ideas out of school that I was trying to think about, but I found myself sitting on my couch, scrolling or doing whatever, and trying to figure out, hey, I'm one of the business ideas is going to pop into my head one day. And this podcast has been a great way for me. Hey, between, first idea and the next one, this is a great way for me to talk to people in my network who are aligned and have much more experience than I do, and learn, and eventually something's going to pop into my head. But between point A and point B, this is my way of trying to mend that gap.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Let's talk about the idea concept, right? Because there's, I think, so first of all, not everybody's created to be an entrepreneur. They're not. Okay. How do you know if you're created to be an entrepreneur? From my perspective, if you're designed to be an entrepreneur, if all you think about is creating something from nothing and you're not scared of doing it. Okay. People who spend time focused on risk and only risk are not entrepreneurs. They need to be working for great companies, and that's okay, because every company needs a risk manager,
right?
Or several of them. Okay. But in doing so, when it comes down to trying to decide, is my idea good? Okay. Yes, you need a circle of influence that can pour life into you. I will tell you, some of the most innovative ideas have never been thought of before. Products, goods, and services. Steve Jobs and the iPhone, right? Elon Musk and Tesla.
Right.
Elon Musk and rockets that land themselves, right? Some ideas are going to be so big that even your friends and your family and your close allies may not fully grasp, right? And then it becomes like, okay, well, literally I'm going to answer 3 questions when I'm trying to process, is this an idea I should pursue? Actually, 4. The first question I'm going to ask myself is, what are the strengths that I bring to this initiative that could make it successful? Okay. So what's the strength? Okay. What are the second question, what are the potential struggles that could come up with this concept, this idea? Do I have to raise capital, which I'm not a big fan of, but do I have to raise money? Do I have to borrow money? Do I have to go out and mow a bunch of lawns? Like, what are the things in my way, my roadblocks, that will impede or need to be addressed as to not impede the progress of growing the thing? Okay. Third one is what are my blind spots? What are my blind spots? I tell people all the time that, in fact, I was asked a number of years ago on a TV thing. They said, well, what's your greatest mistake in building a business? I thought, that's easy. I tried to build a business without building myself. Right. So I had people with CFO and COO and all these different acronyms behind their name. I'm a high school dropout. I didn't want them to know that. So I led out of fear and insecurity. Right. That was a blind spot for me for a number of years. Had I addressed it sooner, I would have built a bigger business. Right. And my business got pretty large in the grand scheme of things, but it would have been more successful had I been building myself. That's an example of a blind spot. The fourth one that I think is pretty important is understanding, who do you need at the table? Who's going to be your mental board of advisors? They don't have to be your physical board of advisors, but you definitely want somebody who's incredibly gifted at finance that can give you insight. Again, I'm not a borrower kind of guy. I've always paid my way. I know a lot of people that are very successful in borrowing money and then, and using that as leverage, which is great for them. I'm not good at it, so I don't play with it. Right. So again, blind spot. Right. I want to make sure that I've got someone who's tactically, operationally sound. Okay. These operational people, they think in terms of if this, then that. If this occurs, then that happens next. If this customer is pleased, then this happens. If this customer is not pleased, then this happens. If the revenue comes in on time, this happens. If the revenue doesn't come on time, this happens. They think in terms of cause and effect. Okay. Because most entrepreneurs are more visionary than anything else. They have to have tactical people that can operate in the tactics, but they've got to have strategic people to build the bridge. Okay. Mm-hmm. Every entrepreneur that starts off as a visionary, if they will allow themselves, they can become a strategic visionary, which is how you get an Elon Musk, a Steve Jobs, and so on and so forth. They start off with a big idea, but they also have the ability to get great people around the table at the same time to backfill where they struggle. Okay. It's also vitally important for every business owner never to suppress your superstars. Never suppress your superstars. All because they know more than you in a given genre does not mean they're better than you. It does not mean you're better than them. It means they bring something uniquely gifted to the table. And as a result, you should be thankful for that and apply that as if you're using leverage money or using money as leverage. Like you're getting a greater lift by exercising somebody else's time, talents, and resources and gifts, right? These components make up building a solid company, building a solid family. It's the same approach. It literally is the same approach. If this, then that. What's the big idea? What's standing in my way? What do I need to learn? What do I not know? What do I know? Who do I need? And how do we wrap all this up and actually create a plan? And then get your butt to work.
Mm-hmm. You can't build a business unless you're building yourself. That was a pretty profound one you mentioned. In my, mindset, motivation, self-help journey over the last few years, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is the first book in that realm that ever really caught my attention. Be impeccable with your word, do your best, don't make assumptions, and don't take things personally. You mentioned a point earlier on about just showing up. For your son was saying he doesn't know what he wants to do. You said just show up, just go knock something down, go do something.
Yeah.
I think about the same thing in the back to your point about unstoppable, about just going and showing up, do the thing, and wake up the next day, and keeping kind of that momentum going forward. What does that look like for you tactically now, running businesses as a father and, juggling a bunch? You mentioned you have different days that you're focusing on different parts of your life. Mm-hmm. How are you able to balance family time, balance your entrepreneurial ventures, balance your faith, all of that together on top of staying physically fit for someone your age?
Can you imagine if there was one tool that you could use to leverage to fix all of that or to work on all that? I discovered the one tool for me is collaboration. I have conversations with my family. I have conversations about my dreams. I have conversations with my team. I have conversations about building businesses. I have conversations with mentors and advisors. Collaboration brings people into the initiative rather than you building it as a silo. Okay. It's also as important about what you say no to as about what you say yes to. Okay. I started off the show by explaining that we don't normally do recordings on Saturdays. Okay. It's just because that's normally carved out time for another initiative, my family, okay, or family. And it just so happened where it worked out this time. Okay. But as soon as we're done here, I'm taking Chas and we're going to a little mini resort here. We're going to get a couples massage. Right. I won't have my phone with me. I won't be answering emails. I won't be on a podcast. Like, I'm going to be present with her so we can communicate and talk. And the same holds true. The number of years ago, I was going to buy a commercial building that I ended up buying, still own it today. And I remember sitting my wife down at the time and my 2 boys at the time and saying, "Hey guys, so this is a massive opportunity, but here's what can happen if everything goes bad." And I went through the process of what liquidation looked like, just so they had a complete. I said, "I really still think it's a good idea. What do you guys think?" I brought them into the decisions or into a decision that could affect them long term. Fortunately, they were like, "Yes, let's do it. Let's go for it," which is awesome. But if you don't spend that quality time on the front end, you can't have those really powerful conversations when you need them, right? Mm-hmm. You're not willing to talk about the little things with your partner. You're not going to talk about the big things with your partner, right? If you're not doing collaboration in a communication framework and trying to be clear, One of my favorite quotes by Dave Ramsey is, "It's unkind to be unclear." Right? I would rather deal with having frustrations rise, but be clear, than not be clear, keep frustrations low, and then create future problems. Right? I would rather go ahead and, to that unstoppable point, I'd rather go ahead and knock it out. Just be done. Like, all right, this is going to be a sensitive, and you go, this is going to be a sensitive conversation. I want to share my heart. I use the words like, I actually use terminology like that. Look, this is going to be a sensitive conversation for both of us. This could be a challenging conversation. My heart is X. My intent is X. So I start with my heart and my intent before I get into the minutia of the conversation. But at the end of the day, the only way to, quote, have balance, which there is really no such thing as balance, is through collaboration. There's expectations and expectations management. Okay. If my partner expects me to be present with them on Saturday afternoon, at the top of a resort while we're getting a massage, the couples massage, and I've agreed to that, that's where that agreement comes in. Then I need to honor that, be impeccable with my word, as you said a few minutes ago. Okay. Same thing with you. If I commit to being on a show, I show up. And I've shown up sick. I've shown up hungry. I've shown up with stomach bugs. Like, I show up. It's just, we so much of expectations of other people are actually controlled by what we accept for ourselves. Right? So if you expect me to show up and then I don't show up, we break trust. However, if you expect me to show up and I do show up, not only do I show up, but I show up with intentionality. Like, I'm trying my best as someone who's now has a chance to share on a regular basis with the world through a variety of different media sources. I need to show up because I'm talking to you, but we're talking to you and your audience. We're hanging out all together as one big family, right? That comes down to intent. So intent, expectation, collaboration, acceptance. You can nail that and just kind of massage that along the way. You're going to have great relationships. You're going to have strong business. You're going to be more congruent with yourself, and you're going to keep yourself out of a lot more problems.
You mentioned the point earlier about having time every day. You wake up, you're active, you set time aside for prayer. Mm-hmm. One of my ideas that I'm tinkering with in my head is this MVP framework. And I've alluded to this a few times, but the concept of minimum viable product in tech startups, MVP. This is the idea of meditation, visualization, and prayer.
Love it.
The MVP framework that gets you to your goals. And I think that's the formula for manifestation in my head, at least. If you want to create the life that you want to live, I think you have to do those three things in order to actually get it.
I absolutely love that. I'm always careful with the word manifestation. This is something my girlfriend and I get into debates on because she loves.
Fire away, let's go.
I manifested this. And to be honest, I got to be honest. Stuff that she's said she wanted to do or would do or wanted to do, it has come to pass. So her way could work as well as mine. I always look at, and I love the MVP framework you just laid out. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a signature idea. I would roll with it 100%. To me, manifestation is nothing more than faith and focus. Okay. Or actually focus and faith, technically. That what I focus on, having faith that it'll work over time, it'll come to pass. Okay. I don't believe in the manifestation framework, and there's neuroscience behind it. So I'm going to be careful how I kind of phrase this. I do think it's important to sit down in a quiet place and envision the future as if you're living it. That is a quote unquote manifestation principle. I do agree with that because it ties your emotional well-being to that initial outcome. So I agree with that part. I do not believe you can sit in your home and you're in the chair right here and just go, I need an airplane. I want an airplane. I want an airplane. I want an airplane. I see an airplane. I see an airplane. I see an airplane. I think it's more like, okay, we use the airplane as an example. It's probably one of my potential next investments. It's a little bit further down the road. Okay. One of my goals is to experience a Phenom 300 that can fly coast to coast, self-pilot thing. It has blue seats with white leather stitching in the middle. It has black lacquer as its shiny thing. I have a a pilot that I know, like, and trust and respect. I know I'm going to use this resource once I invest in the resource, I know I'm going to let other people fly the plane when I'm not using it. Therefore, I can return on investment on the plane itself. I know there's a huge tax benefit of it. Okay, so I know all of these things. Those are all the things I went and got information on in order to decide, does this make sense to even sit here and think about anymore? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's an element of proactivity that needs to go into the mathematical equation, I guess, the equation, if you will. So it's like, okay, goal over here meets diligence, like do your due diligence, be diligent about it, meets, okay, I have enough information to pursue this goal. That's focus. And I know that if I focus and I'm constantly being diligent and I'm constantly looking for mentorship and I'm constantly actually researching and understanding more about this thing, that in time, i.e. faith, that thing will come to pass. Okay, so the framework is a little more linear for me, where Chas might say, well, I told you 2 years ago we were going to be doing this, this, and this, and look, it's here. We started dating. When Chas and I started dating, she goes, we're going to have a beautiful relationship. So we are. Like, we're like 5 minutes in. What are you talking about, right? She's like, no, we're going to have a beautiful relationship. It's because we're going to communicate. We're going to collaborate. We're going to listen before we talk. We even when we were dating, we even had this. I'm a big believer. You never argue in the bedroom, you never argue in the kitchen, and you never argue in the family room, like the family areas. So the bedroom is for your partner and yourself. The family areas for family and like really healthy kind of family building. Those are like, I don't know, sacred places. It means it's like going to a temple or going to a mosque. I'm Christian, but you know what I'm saying? It's like going to a holy spot, right? So then we came to, so we were chit chatting about it, and I had done this wrong. Which, again, this is lessons I've learned by doing it wrong the first time. We got in this conversation, if you will, and we were talking through it, and we're like, well, you know what? We can go to the garage. We'll do our big debates in the garage because we're all old enough now that if you're in a relationship with anybody, stuff's going to come up, stuff to deal with, right? Yep. There's going to be disagreement, so there's no reason to act like there's not going to be, regardless of whatever rom-com you watched. It's going to happen, right? So, and then we went to go have one of our first big debates in the garage, and I was like, I'm freaking cold in here. So we ended up doing it in the large master closets. Now we have closet conversations because we have the closet we have in this house is a pretty sizable closet. So it's just now we have closet conversations, but we're still living by the same principles. We're still protecting what's holy, what's sanctified, and then still addressing the concerns. And we also made an agreement to address things as they happen, not to wait, not to let it linger. And we've largely done that well. I think there's been one or two times where things got a little further than they would have, but we can always say, hey, you know what? We said we were going to do X, Y, and Z. That was our agreement. Yeah. So those components can play with something pretty nice.
To your point about collaboration being so critical for maintaining that balance in your life, if you let some of these things linger on over the span of the week, and your energy and mind share that you will be putting towards your business or your kids or whatever else is getting depleted by having this other thing in the back of your mind. It's again the idea of I constantly go back to the 4 agreements, but being impeccable with your word. If you just say what you're feeling in the moment, obviously giving those precursors, as you mentioned. I want to speak from my heart. This is the intention, all of the precursors that you mentioned. But if you're impeccable with your word in the moment, you have to avoid a lot of those headaches. And again, it goes back to really being able to live the most fruitful life by not having those distractions in the back of your head. Because again, distractions destroy the dream, like you said.
It does every time. Every time.
So good.
Oh, dude, I've enjoyed hanging out with you, man. I hope it's been good for your audience, and can't wait to hang out with you a little more.
Yeah, this was a true pleasure, and I'm excited to connect with you here again sometime soon. For my audience who'd love to continue to hear the amazing wisdom of Stephen Scoggins, where's the best place for them to tap into you and all of your teachings?
Oh, man, appreciate that. StephenScoggins.com is a website, and I'm on all the social platforms, but I personally am most active on Instagram. That's how you and I actually connected, ironically. And I hope they find the information inspiring, encouraging, and more than anything, practical. Like I hope they could take a step with it. So appreciate you again. 100%. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you enjoy your massage today.